Hello everyone, amateur meteorologist First Weather here. It is July 23rd, 2020, and this is the GO-16 satellite for the Northeast. We can see that we have quite a few thunderstorms firing up near the border of Virginia and North Carolina. We can see that we have quite a few cells, one here, and then a couple right here. And these are actually pretty strong. You can see that we do have some black and even some whitish hues in the centers of these storms, indicating that these storm updrafts, are pretty strong. And we even have a new cell developing over here. In the Northeast, where there is a slight risk of severe weather, basically in the northeastern quadrant, there isn't really much going on. You do have some storms firing up in this region, some showers really. There's nothing really too aggressive. I think as we go through the evening, we are going to see some more storms firing up and some bigger storms potentially, especially for the eastern locations, especially near the coastline, where conditions will be a little bit more favorable. Now, if we go to the NOAA severe weather risk area, we can see that the real area of severe weather risk is in the Northeast. If we look at the population in cities, we can see places like New York, Boston, and interior locations like New Hampshire, southern portions of Vermont, and interior New York is where the severe weather risk is for today, while most of the southern mid-Atlantic and states like Pennsylvania, West Virginia are under a marginal risk for severe weather, with the main threat being some really heavy rain and some damaging wind gusts, with that threat being pronounced in the slight shading right here. Now, if we look at the NAIA model, this is a sounding for central Virginia. You can see that we do have some pretty impressive CAPE. We can see CAPE values anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000. I think this is a bit overdone. But as you can see with that extreme heating that we're seeing with temperatures in the low to mid 90s, really allowing those parcels to rise up quickly and to rise all the way to the 115 millibar level height, which is about 40,000 feet. So these storms will have pretty potent updrafts. But one thing I want you to notice is these wind profiles, very weak. Minimal wind directional or vertical wind shear. So that is what is going to keep these storms relatively peaceful. They're going to be some pretty good storms with the heat of the day and the CAPE, but these storms really won't be that long-lived. They'll be very cluster-like. They're going to group together very easily, and the main threats are going to be some very heavy rain and potentially some damaging winds with those downbursts. But these aren't really going to be any rotational storms or anything that's quite significant. If we look at the PWAT values, you can see why there's a pretty good risk of some very heavy rainfall if you get caught in one of these storm cells with the PWAT value at 2.21. So lots of moisture in the atmosphere as we speak. And now if we go northeast to the Boston area, where there's a slight risk of severe weather, you can see why the National Weather Service has decided to include a slight risk for them. And that's because of a completely different wind profile. You can see that winds are relatively weak at the lower levels, but as you go further up, you can see the winds really strengthen. There's a low-level jet right over the northeastern portion of the country, and that's allowing those winds to really pick up as you go higher up in the atmosphere. And that is what that's going to allow is those storms to really have their updrafts and downdrafts become separated, and because of that, those storms will be longer lasting, they'll be more potent, and there will be a higher risk of damaging winds and just in general stronger storms. And you can see the CAPE values not too much higher than the mid-Atlantic, but because of that directional or vertical wind shear with that increase in speed with height, we do have a pronounced risk of seeing some severe storms in the northeastern region today. Now, if we go to the current storm setup, this is Tropical Storm Gonzalo. As you can see, it is currently a tropical storm with a very small tropical storm wind field, but that is expected to change as it strengthens into our likely first hurricane of the storm season. This is the earliest G-storm on record, so definitely a very active hurricane season so far. This is our 7th named storm of the season. As you can see, it is going to strengthen into a hurricane in the next couple of days, and then, according to the National Weather Service, weaken it back into a tropical storm as it goes just south of Jamaica and northeast of Costa Rica. Now, if we look at the ensemble plots for Tropical Storm Gonzalo, this is just one model ensemble, and as you can see, there is very good agreement actually with where this system is going to go. It looks like most likely this is going to go south of Cuba and northeast of Mexico, so it really won't have much of a direct impact. It will really stay in this nice little Gulf area right here. The question is where it will go after that. If we switch to more of a longer range ensemble, you can see that This ensemble does actually make this storm go a little bit further north into Cuba instead of having it stay further south. And then it does actually have it go all the way into New Orleans and Louisiana. And this is, again, this is way too far. All we do know is that the storm is likely going to be somewhere around here by the end of the week. That is what we know right now. The question is where it will go after that. You can see that's where it really starts to diverge. There's very good model consensus that it's going to be somewhere here. But then after that, we have some models taking it here, some here, and some even here. And there's also a debate about its strength. We have some models having it being a little stronger, while other models are having it as really just a tropical depression or a subtropical low by the time it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. So that is where the uncertainty lies. Obviously, we're gonna get a better picture as we get closer in time. But one thing that is going for the storm are the above average sea surface temperatures all along from the Gulf of Mexico down south into the southern Atlantic Ocean, where the storm is currently right now. So that will really help to help develop that storm and fuel it as it goes northwestward. And now here is the another ensemble plot for Gonzalo. As you can see, this one is actually even further south than the previous one. So this one takes it actually brushing in to this area. But as you can see, there is general consensus that it's going to be somewhere around here. But then after that is when the questions lie. This storm is taking it more of a southerly route into Texas, while the previous model ensemble was taking it something like this, and the one before that was doing something like this. So we do know that it's going to be somewhere here. After that is where things get questionable. So this is only going to become more clear with time, and I will be making follow updates on this as we go further into time. But the one thing I can tell you is that this really doesn't look to be too much of a big threat, especially until it reaches this region right here. Nothing really too strong. It won't really intensify too much. And even as we go further north, there isn't really much indication that this will strengthen into a large storm. In fact, most of the models really depict this as a weak tropical storm, if that even, by the time it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. So not really, I wouldn't really get too worried if you're in the Gulf of Mexico, but just be aware of what's going on and stay tuned to your local weather forecast and the National Weather Service. Now, if we switch to this right here, let's go further south, we can see that there is another storm, Tropical Depression 8. It is expected to strengthen into a tropical storm and make a southwesterly turn into the southern portion of Texas and then eventually down into Mexico, providing some pretty good rains for these areas. And if we look at the strength bar, we can see nothing really too impressive. It's going to remain or strengthen into a tropical storm before then rapidly weakening back into a tropical depression. And finally, one thing I want to touch on is the European ensemble. As you can see, this is for August 2nd, and over the next few days, we are going to see quite a few waves, tropical waves, develop and originate over Africa and start moving gradually to the west. And as you can see, the EPS does have a pretty favorable pattern for these storms to just track gradually westward, with that Bermuda high really being strong and expansive and not allowing these storms to carve their path northward like this, protecting the United States from any threats. Now again, there has to be a million things that have to go right for the United States to get impacted by a wave from off the African coast. The storm has to track perfectly, strengthen, and actually make landfall. But all I'm saying is that right now, if a storm were to strengthen and it were to become a hurricane or tropical storm and it were to reach this area, there would be a higher than likely chance of it making landfall or directly impacting the United States because of that high pressure. You can see that it really stays strong all the way to the end of the period, and especially around this time frame, you can see that the ensemble does have sort of an arching high like this that will really help to keep these storms suppressed south, and by the time it makes that northward turn, it's going to be too late if a storm of that magnitude does originate. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments section below. Other than that, stay tuned for upcoming videos, and I'll see you next time.